that ran rampant in the early 2010 TV shows on ABC Family before it became Freeform. Fat phobia became, like, just ran rampant. And yeah, I know. You are gonna talk about Pretty Little Liars, and you're gonna say, yeah, when they put Hannah in the fat suit, that was gross and weird, and showing her body dysmorphia was an issue. But that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. It could be what I'm talking about, but I don't talk about Pretty Little Liars because I literally only watched like one season and half of the last episode. That's all I've ever seen. No, I am discussing Baby Daddy and Young and Hungry, and basically any other TV show, and basically any other comedy TV show at that time, including Bunheads, which is not a comedy TV show, but was funny because it was written by the Sherman Palladinos, who I'm not supporting at this time, but anyways, the number one thing that they did was mock fat people, and you can see it from the first episode of Baby Daddy, the first episode, where they discuss the fact that Riley used to be fat. And congratulations on not being fat anymore, Riley. You were so huge. You were disgusting. No one liked you because you were so fat, Riley. We called you Rygantor. And then, like, in second season, they show a photo of Riley when she was fat. And she's literally just a mid-sized girl who's mostly made of boob. And it's like, oh, you just don't like people who are above a size 4. Cool. And then you have the show Young and Hungry, which has Yolanda and Elliot, who are the maid and the housekeeper for this. The housekeeper and the manager for this billionaire tech guy, and they're both plus sized. And the number one joke between them continuously is, "You're so fat. You're disgusting. You're fat." And then the other one will look at them and go, "If I'm fat, you're fat." And that's like every joke in every episode. And yeah, the show's fun. It's well written. It's good. But it's so exhausting to watch how often they force people who are literally just mid-sized to mock themselves and each other for being fat. And then Baby Daddy, who has Melissa Peterman, who got famous during Reba for losing a ton of weight, mocking Riley for going to fat camp, and Riley's fat camp comes up every single episode, and it was just gross, and it was icky, and it was weird, and it's still something that goes on, and it's coming around again because of Ozempic and everything that's happening with that. But the body dysmorphia that this must have caused for so many people, because people in the writer's room just decided that if there was a joke that could be told, the joke should be how fat an actor is exhausting. It's right there on Glee levels, where you could tell Ryan Murphy was mad at one of the actors in his show for whoever was getting the meanest disses that week. Like, that's how bad it was. It was so bad. And I know that I'm not the person to discuss this. I know. But, like, it was brought up in my page. And it's so despicable how often ABC Family felt comfortable. And how often TV shows still feel comfortable just going, oh yeah, they used to be fat, or they are fat. Let's mock them or put them in a fat suit, or enjoy the fact that they're just so gross and disgusting. Actually, you know, the show that does it the worst is Parks and Rec, because they don't even have, like, fat people on the show. All they do is talk about the morbid obesity of people, and then every single extra is super duper thin and tiny. And no, that's not an ABC Family show. I know it's not an ABC Family show, but now my brain is thinking about it again. It's a really big complaint for me. Okay, anyways, bye!
I've been considering the considerations of things that I want to have considered for the new Hunger Games book, and I'm starting to go insane because we have so much information to go off of because of the previous series, and so little information to go off of because we don't know anything about what this book is going to be about, and all of my predictions are pattern-based, and the prequel and the original trilogy are so different, I don't even really know what to predict. Like, last night I had a dream that Suzanne Collins was just like, fuck all of y'all, and then made the new story an entire new cast of characters that none of us had ever heard of. So now I'm considering that possibility. What if that happens? I don't know. It could. I do want to see what life is like in the other districts. I've heard people say that they want to see what life is like in the other districts. They want possibly another character that lives in a different district. That's a possibility. I still want to see more of District 12. I want to see what District 12 was like when Haymitch was growing up. I want to see what kinds of changes happened between Katniss's mom being 16 and Katniss being 16, because a lot of things changed. I want to see what was happening with the rebels in District 12, because we know that the rebels were super active there, and we know they were active other places as well, obviously, but I want to see more about the rebels in District 12, because it's fascinating, and that's something that we've been following for the whole story, and I want to know. And I want to know if Haymitch was involved, and I want to know if he knew Katniss's dad, and I want to know if he and Katniss's dad and Gale's dad were all friends. And I want to know if this story had anything to do with why Mr. Everdeen and Katniss's dad ended up together in the first place. Because I feel like there are so many things that could happen in this story that would make people be like, that makes Katniss look like a chosen one. But I feel like that is one of those Easter eggs that I think would make the whole thing come full circle and be really beautiful. But again, I have no predictions because I don't know. There's just things that I want. I want all of those things really bad, but I don't know if they're going to actually happen.
I've been seeing a lot of Hunger Games fans speculating about what they think Suzanne Collins is going to try to say in this next Hunger Games book, because she only writes when she has something to say, so she must be trying to tell us something. And this book and movie were announced so soon after the release of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes movie. Whatever Suzanne Collins has to say, I think she wrote a long time ago, and I think that's why the movie and book are coming out so soon. I don't have any factual evidence for this, nor have I ever released a book or a movie. This is just me speculating based on observations I've made. Because while Suzanne Collins has a lot to say, and while she does only write when she has something to say, The Hunger Games is also a franchise, and she is bound by many contracts with publishers and probably Lionsgate and all sorts of people. My guess, again, no evidence, my guess is that they wanted her to release a prequel before she could release the stories that she actually wanted to release. They may have been like, hey, we have a really good franchise on our hands. I know you may really want to do a Haymitch story or a Finnick story right now, but you need to do this prequel first. And even if that wasn't the case, there are still so many contracts and hoops you have to jump through and things before even announcing that you're releasing a book to the public, especially one that is going to have this much hype around it. Because even now we have more information to go off of than we did at the announcement of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is crazy because there was a much longer gap between the Hunger Games and the announcement of the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. But when it was announced, it didn't even have a title, and we have a title. Like, that's considerably more information to go off of. I personally think that whatever Suzanne Collins has to say, she already said it, and she wanted to say it a really long time ago. And I don't necessarily think that the timing of this release has anything to do with current events. I think it has more to do with the fact that they may have wanted her to release a prequel before she started talking about a Haymitch story or a Finnick story. And if we get a Finnick story next, I will be slightly more sure that my theory may be correct.
I didn't post a video that has my boyfriend in it during Pride Month just for everybody to comment, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're straight. I thought you were a lesbian." There's a B in there. 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 I am the B in there. Buzz, buzz, motherfucker.
It's time for us to have a conversation about parasocial relationships on the internet. After yesterday and the responses to the videos I have made that feature having a boyfriend, we gotta talk, okay? First of all, I've made so many videos about what it was like to grow up queer in the church and closeted, and how traumatizing it was to get outed as a teenager multiple times. I've made so many videos about how I was treated by my peers and classmates when I did come out. I have talked in length about the experiences I had as a queer person growing up closeted and religious. And it wasn't a fun experience. So I can't lie and say that it feels super awesome to have gone through that whole journey and be really proud of myself for coming out, and for probably the first time ever openly on the internet celebrating Pride Month, which I've never felt like I could do before, because I was afraid of backlash from my community that I grew up in. I've never been publicly out And so I am not gonna lie to you. Not gonna lie to you. It kind of fucking sucks to be really proud of myself for that and then post a video of my boyfriend who I love and supports me and has like gotten me through all of that. It sucks to like show him to the internet and then have everybody say that they're really disappointed that I'm not a lesbian because they have like found out that I'm straight. I saw one comment that was like, you know, I'm happy for you, but I didn't expect you to be this straight. Like, what the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? What are you talking about? That's really disrespectful. And that's really rude. And like, I know a lot of you who commented those things are people who watch my content every day and will probably watch this video. So if you do see this video and you are someone commenting things like that on my videos from yesterday, dude, that's weird. It's weird to, first of all, tell someone, oh my god, I assumed you were a lesbian, and now I'm disappointed that you're not. That's weird. Especially as someone who has spent a really long time feeling like shit about their sexuality. I don't want to also be made to feel like shit by my own community for not being fucking gay enough for you or something. As much as you think that you might know me, if you've been following me for a really, really long time, you do not. And I really love talking to you guys in my comment sections, and I really love the interactions that I get to have with you guys on the internet, but you do not know me. I don't know any of you. I do not know any of you. I do not see your profile pictures. I do not see your names a lot of the time. I just see the comments you guys leave on my videos. So it's really weird for you to think that we have some kind of back and forth relationship and that you know things about me that only people in my personal life would have any idea about. You know? I absolutely love making content for everybody, and I love talking to people in my comment sections, and I love connecting with everybody and building community on here. I, of course, really, really care about my audience, and I want you guys always to feel welcome on my page. I want to create a safe space for people, but I also need it to be a safe space for me, because this is my page and my content. And if I'm spending a lot of time, which I have this Pride Month, talking about my coming out journey and how genuinely traumatizing it was for me, and how far I have come since then, the last thing that I ever want to see for my own mental health and peace of mind is people telling me that I am not queer enough. And we've been having this discourse for years. You know, bisexual erasure is something that has come up numerous times. There's been tons of discourse this year about whether or not bisexuals are allowed to bring their partners of other genders to Pride. Just because I have a boyfriend does not mean that I am any less a part of this community. And it really, really, really hurts, especially to be receiving comments like that when this is one of the first Pride months that I've ever been able to publicly participate in. I have a lot of fear still around talking about my sexuality on the internet and coming out, because I still have family members that I'm not out to, and I still have people in my personal life that don't know, and they don't use TikTok, so I, feel a little bit better talking about it on here than I would maybe on like Facebook. It's not easy for me to talk about. So when I do talk about it and I'm invalidated by my own community, just because there are people in my audience who feel like they know me when they don't, it's shitty. It feels really shitty. And I know I made a jokey video talking about how there's a bee in there yesterday. But, like, there's a B. There's a B in there. It's LGBT. And a lot of bisexual people are in heterosexual relationships. And that does not make them any less bisexual. We are all bees. We should be allowed to exist as bees without having our identity invalidated by both the queer community
and the non-queer community. Bye! This was not the Hunger Games news that I wanted to share with you guys today, but unfortunately, as of about a half an hour ago, it was announced that Donald Sutherland, the actor who played President Snow in the original Hunger Games movies, has passed away at the age of 88. I don't usually get emotional about actors passing away, but Donald Sutherland is beloved by so many people. Even though the character he played in the Hunger Games was an evil, evil man, the actor who played him was not, and he made a really lasting positive impression on so many Hunger Games fans. And I really hope that he's up in the sky partying with Alan Rickman dressed as their characters from the Jane Austen movies they were in. Even though Donald Sutherland is not someone that most of us knew personally, he was a fixture in many of our homes, and he will continue to be for years to come. I'll be watching Pride and Prejudice and the Hunger Games later to remember him. This is just really sad and unfortunate, and I'm really glad that he lived a very long and fulfilling life. He was so incredibly loved, and my heart goes out to his family, because this is just really sad. Finding out that New Jersey was originally supposed to be what Hollywood is today was, like, mind-blowing to me, but also made so much sense. Because, like, if you think about it, having New York City and Hollywood, like, the two places that people go for, like, show business and opportunities and, like, business ventures and things, having them be on the opposite sides of the country doesn't make, like, a ton of sense. Like, it does make sense now, but like, it would have made a lot of sense for it all to be in the same place originally, you know? And how much different would New Jersey be if it had become Hollywood? Like, is that why New Jersey is the way that it is? I've never been to New Jersey, but, like, I grew up watching Jersey Shore. I don't know how accurate of a depiction it was, but, like, I feel like I gleaned enough. And how much different would California be if Hollywood was never put there, I wonder? Would it be like a super rural area? I don't know. It's fascinating to think about the possibilities. And then it makes you angry when you think about the fact that the only reason why they were never able to set things up in New Jersey was because Thomas Edison had the patents to the movie cameras that he took credit for inventing but didn't invent, prevented anybody from setting up anything in New Jersey, and then they had to go all the way out to California to get away from the guy because he had so much control over them because he was such an asshole. And he didn't even invent the movie camera. Some other guy invented it, and then Thomas Edison was like, well, I got the patents in America, which means I did it. I'm so heated about this right now. Like, you guys don't understand. We all know that Thomas Edison took credit for a million things he didn't do. Did you know this includes Topsy the elephant? That's right. Thomas Edison had no direct involvement with anything involving Topsy, but it was carried out by his company with his name on it so that he could take credit for it, because this is what prompted him to start doing all sorts of experiments on animals with electricity. So he was able to take credit for this super, super highly televised, famous, terribly sad event and use it to get the SPCA to give him dogs to do experiments on. That's right. That's right. And like, Topsy was already going to be euthanized after spending her entire life in captivity, being labeled as a bad elephant and suffering tremendously for her entire life. And then her suffering was only punctuated by more suffering when she was euthanized in this horror show in front of so many people. And then her suffering was used to aid in the suffering of so many animals that Thomas Edison only exploited and experimented on to discredit Tesla's research about electricity. Because Thomas Edison once again took credit for something that he did not do. I keep thinking I'm gonna get off my Thomas Edison soapbox for the day, but I have the fire of 1,000 burning suns in my soul of hatred for that man, and sometimes it comes out. I woke up this morning more heated than I was yesterday about my hatred for Thomas Edison. He's like one of those people, the more you think about, the more you hate him. Like, let's break down some of his crimes, okay? First of all, we all know he took credit for a million things he didn't do. He exploited his employees. He exploited their intellectual labor. He received sole recognition for so many things that the people who worked under him did, and to this day gets sole credit for so many things that he didn't do. He exploited his employees' physical labor. He expected them to work extremely long hours in a high-stress situation with extremely high pressure. Thomas Edison is the reason why we have so many antitrust laws and anti-monopolistic laws, because he tried to create multiple monopolies in multiple industries because he was so protective of his patents and he was so predatory with them. So then he formed the MPPC and was basically like, we're going to stop anybody who's making movies from making movies because we have the patents to all the cameras. So anybody who wanted to make movies had to go out west to Hollywood. The first movies to come out of Hollywood were technically pirated. Like, it wasn't like just as soon as they went to Hollywood, using the cameras and everything was totally legal. They just didn't care. And they formed a bunch of independent studios, and they all said to each other, we are going to stick up for each other against this capitalistic asshole. And that's what they did. So Thomas Edison was a stinky little asshole, and he would use legal intimidation to get people to do what he wanted all the time, and he would frequently sue people. And most of the times when he was suing people and coming after them legally, it wasn't actually to protect anything, it was just because he wanted to control them and intimidate them. And then he would acquire the patents to these absolutely incredible pieces of technology and then not allow anybody to use them. He would buy up patents from other inventors, and then he would take the credit for the thing that they invented because he had the patent for it. He would force people into unfavorable licensing agreements. He basically didn't want anybody to benefit from any of these innovative inventions that were coming out because he was a greedy asshole. And there's a lot of Edison apologists who will say, well, even though he wasn't an inventor, he was still a really good businessman. No, he was a terrible businessman. Businessmen hated him. He had no qualms about breaking ethical rules when it came to business, and he was a very unpleasant person to work with. He was also a eugenicist and a racist, and openly said that he thought people who were not fit to produce should not be allowed to produce, even though he, as a disabled person, would have fallen into the category that he saw as not fit to produce, which is insane. He got the SPCA to give him tons of animals to electrocute just so that he could try and discredit Nikola Tesla's research about alternating currents and electricity. He was the one who commercialized electric power. If you hate paying your electric bill at the end of every month, you can thank Thomas Edison for that because he's the reason it exists. Anyways, justice for Louis Le Prince, the original inventor of the movie camera, who deserves the credit.
So this is like an actual thing that people are posting online right now about Helen Keller.
And I love historical women, so I would love to tell you about Laura Bridgman.
Laura Bridgman was born in 1829, and when she was 2 years old, she contracted scarlet fever and became deafblind. When she was 7 years old, she began attending the Perkins School for the Blind in Boston, Massachusetts, where she became the first deaf-blind person to receive a formal education. This was also where she met Anne Sullivan, who would go on to become Helen Keller's aide, using techniques that she learned and adapted from Laura Bridgman, like the manual alphabet and tactile signing. Laura Bridgman learned to read and write with Braille. She learned to type, she learned to knit, she learned to sew. She was able to meet some really prolific people, like Charles Dickens, who went on to write about her. She was able to do these things because she had people around her, supporting her, who believed in her, and they made things accessible to her. Helen Keller flying a plane was made possible because of the pilot and the crew who encouraged her and supported her, who assisted her in understanding the controls through touch and through communicating with her through tactile signing. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a part of our history, and deafblind people are real people. There are a lot of things that you can critique and speculate about in terms of Helen Keller's personal beliefs. But in terms of what she was able to accomplish as a deafblind person, there's a lot of ableist rhetoric going around the internet right now about her, and I'm really tired of seeing it. These are real people who still exist in our communities today.
This video from a former atheist who converted to Christianity came up on my For You page today, and they said, 2 years ago, I didn't believe in a God. I felt like there wasn't enough evidence and it was simply unconvincing. Now I believe every word of the Bible and I'm headed to church this morning. And I was like, I left the church. I've deconstructed from my faith. Why is this on my For You page? And then I saw the caption that said, Case for Christ changed my life. And I was like, oh, okay. If you didn't know, The Case for Christ is a book by Lee Strobel that was turned into a movie that documents his journey from atheism to becoming a Christian. And Lee Strobel, this investigative journalist with a background in law, set out to seek evidence that proved the existence of Jesus Christ. And by the end of the book, he's like, see, there's irrefutable evidence from all of these experts in science that Jesus exists and he was real, and I'm no longer an atheist. I believe in Jesus now because I have all this evidence. And while I believe that everybody has the right to follow whatever faith they want to follow and believe in whatever they want to believe in, this book is one enormous logical fallacy. You see, Lee Strobel had already converted from atheism when he began this research, and he already had a confirmation bias before he began. Throughout the whole book, he only selectively presents evidence that supports the existence of God, while downplaying any evidence that contradicts it. He heavily relies on the testimonies of Christian scholars and scientists while not listening to any opinions from skeptics. This entire book overstates certainty to an extreme degree. Lee Strobel presented Jesus and his disciples in this book as irrefutable historical figures that undeniably existed at some point in time. Even though a lot of theological historians will tell you that there's a lot of evidence that shows that Jesus and his disciples were more theological narratives than actual historical people. He completely misrepresented so much scholarly research about theology in this book by saying things like the majority of the historians on earth believe in the empty tomb without saying anything about the years-long debate that historians have had about it, you know? The case for Christ was something that was hotly talked about in my church. We watched it as a church. It was a very big deal, and it was shown as this life-changing piece of evidence for God that this had to be the correct thing, when in reality Lee Strobel was completely misrepresenting himself to his audience. He led people to believe that he had been an atheist when he started this project, and then this project led him to become a Christian when he had already started becoming a Christian when he started this project. And his whole goal was to mislead people into being proselytized to. There's so many lies in this book. I'm all for people finding their own faith journey and believing what they want to believe consensually, but a word of warning, if you ever see Pure Flix at the top of a movie, that's a whole other rabbit hole I could go down if you wanted me to, but it's probably not a good source to get any kind of information from.
This is exactly why I have no respect for anybody who chooses to spread conspiracy theories about Helen Keller around the internet. If you find yourself wondering how a deaf-blind person is able to learn, to talk, to read, to write, to sew, to fly a plane, and if you have these and one of these, and you don't use them to type into Google, how does a deaf-blind person read? How does a deaf-blind person learn? How does a deaf-blind person speak? If you have these and this, and you choose not to use them to look up how a deaf-blind person or any disabled person is able to do anything, I find myself asking the very same questions about those people. How are you able to learn to read? How are you able to learn to write? How are you able to learn to learn? I personally learned to speak because there were people around me who spoke, and then I ended up picking up how to speak because they were speaking to me. And the same goes for deafblind people who use tactile signing to be so profoundly, willingly misinformed about deafblind people that you think that they are not capable of thought and consciousness is one of the most absurdly ignorant things I've ever heard in my life. And so many people think that deafblind history began and ended with Helen Keller for some reason, even though there are so many deafblind people alive today who have a really hard time finding resources, especially for adults. Deafblind people, just like all disabled people, are capable of doing so many great things as long as they have a support system and people who make things accessible to them. And if that is a concept that is so hard for you to grasp because you don't use these or this, how did you get to where you are? How have you been so willingly ignorant that you aren't willing to learn about the most basic forms of history to the point where you just think everything is a conspiracy theory because you don't want to learn how things work? It makes me so angry, and it's Disability Pride Month this month, and I've seen countless ableist takes about Helen Keller. If you're gonna hate Helen Keller, you can hate her for being a eugenicist and a racist.
The only people from the Hunger Games who I really ship together are Haymitch and Effie. And you
guys have loved listening to the headcanons that I've come up with about them post-epilogue. But we also have a new Hunger Games book coming out that's set during Haymitch's games. And I know it's a long shot to hope that Effie Trinket makes an appearance in this book, but I would love nothing more than to witness Haymitch and Effie meeting for the very first time. Not only because I'm invested in the dynamic of their relationship and how it has developed over the years, but also because I find Effie Trinket to be such a fascinating and very underrated character. Even though she is a fan favorite, I feel like her character has a lot of nuance that kind of goes unnoticed, and I'm especially fascinated by the development that takes place in her character between Catching Fire and the epilogue. I would love to know more about what kinds of things impacted her worldview. Was she a capital loyalist up to a point and then realized that she was wrong? Was it something she had to slowly come to terms with over the course of her being tortured and held captive in the Capitol? Or did the gears start turning way earlier than we as readers originally thought? Did she have any really early interactions with Haymitch that started to make her think a little bit? And an even longer, higher hope that I just know will never happen, but like I would love to see it, is if this book that's set during Haymitch's games was told from the perspective of somebody in the Capitol, which is something that we've talked about a lot of being a possibility, but if that person was Effie Trinket. If we got an Effie perspective book about Haymitch's games, I would lose my mind. I don't think that would ever happen. But a girl can dream. I can dream.
Okay, so these are my 12 library holds, and I just wanted to go through them with you guys. Okay, so 6 of these are due the 22nd, and then 6 of these are due July 3rd. But I'm low-key gonna try to read all 12 before next Saturday because I want to. It's because I know that if I return 6 Saturday, I'm gonna go to the library and get 6 more books, and then if I return 6 again on July 3rd, I'm gonna go and get 6 more books. So I don't want to keep having 12 library holds to read. It was fine with just 6, but I could not help myself. So anyways, let's just get into all the books that I have right now, okay? First book I have is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I have like a love-hate relationship with Ali Hazelwood. I don't know. I like vampires, I like werewolves, and everybody's talking about it. I'm like, it's from the library, it's not gonna hurt, it's whatever. I got Gwen and Art Are Not in Love because I've been eyeing this on Goodreads for a minute, and I just saw it at the library and I'm like, okay, well, it's here, why not? That's what the library's for. I have can I read? Infinity? Yeah. Anyways, Infinity Alchemist. I really love alchemy in books, and this also is a polyamorous relationship between 3 queer people. So Pride, also this is for Pride, so Pride and alchemy, why not? Love Theoretically, Ali Hazelwood. I actually originally was going to the library to get Love Theoretically, but then I saw Bride, so I picked that up too. I read this one already. I think it's fine. I don't think it's great, but whatever. Year One by Nora Roberts. My favorite thing is when going to the library is reading like a 40-year-old white woman, and what do they not love more than Nora Roberts? So I was interested in this, so I picked it up. Another Nora Roberts. I'm sorry, I'm very intrigued by her. I've read one other book by her, but and this one also sounded interesting, so why not? Okay, so then I got Magic Lessons and the Rules of Magic. I actually picked Magic Lessons up before the Practical Magic second movie was announced, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna read this, and then it got announced, and then when I went to the library I was like, well, this is here, so I might as well pick this up as well. So that means next time I go to the library, once I'm done reading these, I'll have one book and then I'll be all caught up with the books, and that'll be really fun. I got The Familiar because my library is really good with getting new releases, and this was there, so I picked it up. Prince Lestat. This is going into my reading like a 40-year-old white mom category. I've already read the first book. I read the first book years ago. I thought it was, this is book 11. What the anyways, I thought it was fine, but I just want to continue just because I might not even read this. I'm not gonna lie, like I'm saving this book for very last, so I might not even get to this. I don't know why. The Eye of the Darkness, I'm very behind on my Star Wars reads, like so very behind. But I saw this at the library and I was like, okay, well, I can't read it. Like, I couldn't focus reading it physically, or I couldn't focus reading an audiobook or my ebook, so I was like, maybe physically will be the best way to go for this. And then lastly, I got the 4th book in the Expanse series. Last summer I read the first 3. This summer I want to focus on reading the next 3, and then maybe this year I'll finish the whole series, or next summer I'll finish the last 3. Who knows? But I suck at reading series, so another main focus of mine when going to the library is reading series, so getting 1 book at a time instead of getting all 3. So just getting 1 book every time I go, and I think that'll help me read series more, because it's either I read the first book and then I move on, or like I read the first book when it's coming out and then I read the next book when it's coming out, and then I read the 3rd book when it's coming out. I can never like I can never pick up 1 book, pick up the next, then pick up the 3rd. Like, I don't know what my problem is. But yeah, all of my library holds. I really encourage you guys to check out your local library. Sign up for your summer program. I signed up for mine. It's really cool. It's a really fun way to get, active with your community and to meet new people. And my library is like literally so beautiful. It's my favorite place to be, honestly. So I really recommend checking out your local library. Hi, so I wanted to do a book review on Magic Lessons, which is in the Practical Magic series. This is the first book if you're reading it in chronological order. I don't know what number it is if you read it in publisher order, sorry. But I personally really love this series. Funny enough, I actually started reading this before the second movie was announced, and it was just so crazy because I was reading this and then it got announced and I was like, oh my gosh, like I manifested this for you guys, like, you're welcome. But I just finished it finally. I'm a pretty fast reader. It took me a while to read this. I had this like ebook, physical copy, and I downloaded the audiobook because I was just gonna speed through the rest. But this morning I was really determined to finish it because I've been wanting to read my library copies. So I really sat down and I read it, and I personally liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm more of a plot person and this doesn't have plot, but I'm very fascinated by the Owens family. This follows Marie Owens, who was adopted by Hannah, and by adopted I mean Hannah Owens like kind of just saw her, she was abandoned, so Hannah took her in and taught her magic. Hannah is like a taught magic person, and Marie is like born into magic. And so it is about how the curse on the Owens family like started. It originated with Marie, and it's also just about motherhood. It's about mother-daughter relationships. Marie has a daughter of her own, and it's about passing traditions down in your family and like generational curses, unfortunately. And I just was really fascinated by this book, even though nothing happens. It has there's so many amazing quotes in this book, sorry. So many amazing quotes. The movie is not going to be about this one, I don't think. I personally think that the movie is going to be about the daughters from the Practical Magic series. I do recommend it. I would recommend you. I think the Practical Magic book, I've already read that one is very different from the movie. Like it's very boring, very different from the book. So I had read that back in like last like Halloween or whatever, and I was a little disappointed because it was like so different, and all the stuff that I love about the movie like kind of wasn't really in the book. But I did gain some new information from the book, so it was still fine. But I was a little disappointed, so I didn't want to finish the series, and I'm glad that I went to the library and I picked this one up. I also have the next one, which is the Rules of Magic, which follows the aunt and like their brother that they have, and then I'm gonna get the last one. And I'm not good at reading series, but this series is so much fun. It's so like, I'm not really a cozy person, but it's so cozy and just really chill. Like I was just watching this I was reading this while watching like Love Island. Like it's very chill, and I'm actually very surprised by that. So I do recommend it. I recommend it if you want to get into the series before the movie comes out, because I'm sure once the second movie comes out and it does well, I'm sure they're going to adapt the other ones, because there's 4 books. I mean, there's 3 other books that they could adapt from. So, and then they could probably even do more. Like, this family is literally so fascinating despite how boring this book is. And I'm trying to tell y'all, I had fun reading this book, but it is boring. I'm just very fascinated by the Owens family and this curse and like generational curses in families, because I feel like, I don't think that my family's cursed or anything, but I just feel like I can relate, like with generational trauma and like generational curses. So I absolutely love this. I really recommend that you check it out. But if you hate it, I didn't recommend it to you. Okay? I don't think you'll hate it though. Trust me.
Pureflix, the Christian media production company. It's an absolutely fascinating rabbit hole to go down, and I'll make a longer video about it in the future. But in 2005, 4 people named David A.R. White, Russell Wolfe, Michael Scott, and Elizabeth Travis formed PureFlix with the intent of making family-friendly, wholesome, fun entertainment for Christians, because all the entertainment from the world was just so secular and evil. They began creating films like The Wager and Sarah's Choice, which were moderately popular, but especially popular among Christian crowds, because Christians were desperate to have like the same kinds of fun that everybody else was having, but they just had to make it Christianified, because anything that was not explicitly Christian, while not necessarily a sin, was still like, it could be more Christian than that. Like, we had emo music, but we had Christian emo music, like Skillet and Flyleaf, which ended up getting mainstream popularity, which was very exciting for us Christians. We were like, the good news of the Lord is spreading to the mainstream cultures of the youths. And that was like one of the things with PureFlix. They were like, you know, we'll make Christian movies that are popular with Christian crowds, but then maybe other people will watch them and become a Christian. Which would have worked if they had any production value or ability to write a script or ability to act or ability to do anything that warranted like a movie worth watching. But their movies sucked ass. Like, just ass. Because none of them had any like training on any of this except for David A.R. Cook had been like an actor in some TV shows. So they basically made movies by Christians for Christians, and Christians loved them. There was always a very evil atheist who hated God, and that's why he was an atheist. And then by the end of the movie, something like really bad would happen to them or something, and then the atheist would like become a Christian, or the atheist would like die or something. And then in 2014, they made God's Not Dead, starring the guy who cheated on Teddy in Good Luck Charlie, with a budget of $2 million. And it was literally like marketed as this like, this is gonna bring so many new people into the church, but it was like the definition of preaching to the choir. The only people who watched this movie were Christians, and anybody who was not a Christian was portrayed in like the most offensive light possible in this movie. Literally, it's like, atheist professor makes everyone in the class sign a contract saying that God is dead and the Bible is a lie, and the whole reason is because his family died, so he hates God. And also, the whole movie is really Islamophobic. Like, really, really, really absurdly Islamophobic. It's insane. I don't really know what their intent was behind releasing this movie, other than literally preaching to the choir, because they already had a built-in audience by marketing to Christians, so they would make a lot more money that way. But this is literally the tippy tip of the iceberg. It's so crazy. I will make a long video. In the least patriotic way possible, I hope that everybody who's participating in festivities today has a really fun and safe time doing it. Everybody except the man in my apartment complex who, at 10:30 p.m. last night, decided to go and set off 1 million fireworks in the apartment complex parking lot on the 3rd of July. I know that there's a lot of places in America that do fireworks for like the whole 2 weeks of the 4th of July. This is not one of those places, okay? And just like every other apartment complex in the United States, we have quiet hours that are enacted on weekdays, including July fucking 3rd. You asshat in my apartment complex who lit off a bunch of fireworks in the parking lot last night. I have never felt community like I did when everyone in my apartment complex came out in their robes and slippers at the same exact time to yell at that guy in the parking lot. Like, everyone went out and collectively booed this guy's patriotism back into his apartment, and he had this stupid fucking grin on his face and this orange reflective vest on the whole time. And then, because I didn't have the foresight to give my cats gabapentin yesterday because I didn't think we would be hearing fireworks yesterday, my cat comes into the bedroom and pees all over the brand new comforter that we just got 2 days ago that was like $60. So I had to get up and shampoo cat piss out of my brand new comforter because some asshat in my apartment complex decided to set off fireworks when it wasn't fireworks time yet, and we aren't allowed to set off fireworks in our apartment complex. So like, to that man in my apartment complex, first of all, we all collectively know where you live. Second of all, we all hate you so much. Like, so much. Like, I'm honestly kind of impressed that you managed to make an enemy out of every single one of your, like, well over 100 neighbors at the same time. And, like, I've lived here for years and have only made friends with one of my neighbors, so I feel like I just collectively made 100 friends because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So, like, it was a net positive, but, I mean, we all do have a mutual enemy right now, and he lives in our apartment complex, so. With all of the discourse currently happening about the U.S. Women's Olympic Gymnastics team, I found myself thinking about a girl whose face was plastered across my teenage years. McKayla Maroney. If you were breathing air in 2012, you knew who McKayla Maroney was, and you knew her by this face. She quickly became a meme after making this very unimpressed facial expression on the podium after receiving a silver medal for her vault performance. Now, I think most people who saw this face knew very little about McKayla Maroney and what she was actually going through at the time that warranted her making this facial expression on the podium. During training for the Olympics, she had aggravated a previous break on her big toe and still competed on vault. Not only that, years later she came out and said that it was not just her toe, it was her entire foot that had been broken. And the team doctor, Larry Nassar, lied to the coach about it. And if you know who Larry Nassar is, you probably know where this is going. So, with an injured foot and a criminal for a doctor, she managed to get the silver medal in vault. Personally, I feel like this facial expression is kind of an understatement for all of the emotions that I personally would have been feeling in that moment if I were her. And I can't imagine how frustrating it must have been as a young teenager to be such an incredibly talented gymnast and have all of your hard work and talent boil down to this one facial expression you made on a podium. Like, McKayla Maroney got a lot of backlash and a lot of people were really angry at her for this, to the point where people were like blackmailing her and leaking photos of her as a minor on the internet. In 2016, she released a 50-minute interview where she explained all of the health problems that she had before and after the 2012 Olympics and announced that she would be retiring from gymnastics. And in 2017, McKayla Maroney very bravely came out with the truth about what her team doctor, Larry Nassar, had done to her and hundreds of other women over the course of their gymnastics careers. She filed suits against Michigan State University, the USA Olympic Committee, and USA Gymnastics for trying to cover up the abuse by offering McKayla Maroney $1.25 million to stay quiet about it. She accepted the money, however, USA Gymnastics waived the agreement temporarily so that she could share her story. And now, thank God, Larry Nassar is serving like a 45 to 175-year prison sentence for his crimes. As for what McKayla Maroney is doing now, it seems like she's doing really well. I hope she is. I even did some digging and found out that she released music on Spotify over COVID, but it doesn't seem like anybody really knows about it, so I'm telling you guys. Anyways, McKayla Maroney, if you see this, I profoundly, profusely apologize for what the world put you through when you were 16 years old, because nobody should have had to go through that. I get horny comments all the time, but none are as dedicatedly horny as this specific guy who comments on all of my videos and sends me emails asking me to spin around in circles. I respect the hustle, Sam. I'm not going to spin around in circles for you because I know that you're horny for it, and I think it's weird that you're asking me to do it. Please stop asking me to spin around in circles for your personal enjoyment / entertainment. There's no hard feelings because they're all like really respectful, weirdly. Like, it hasn't really been like sinister. It's just weird. It's just a little weird. Sam, or whoever you are who keeps asking me to do this, I truly hope in my heart that you find a person who will consensually participate in spinning activities with you. I'm not that person. Or you would need to pay me like a lot of money. Like, I'm sure there's a price that I would do this for, but it's a really high one, and I don't know if you have enough of a salary to support me in that way. Anyway, Sam, I hope you find yourself a nice lady who will spin around all day for you consensually. Have a good day. Please stop asking me to spin in circles.
I'm convinced that the new form of rage bait is people recreating viral videos that are like cringy and then posting them without tagging the original creator. So then everybody comments, oh my god, the original was crazy. But then they don't actually tag the original anywhere. So you can't find the original video anywhere for a crumb of context as to why you're watching this shitty recreation of a viral video. At what point does it stop being a parody of something and start being just stealing people's intellectual property?
and not giving them credit for it. Genuinely, I'm asking. And for some of these people, it's like all of their content. Like, all of their content is just them recreating videos that have gone viral that people thought were cringy. And then so many times, there's nothing pointing you in the direction of the original creator, even slightly. And then the blue comment will just be like, the original was so funny. And the blue comment is just the words, the original, which doesn't take you anywhere. And then everyone in the comments will be like, oh my god, the original was so crazy. The original was so funny. Oh my god, I could not believe the original. And then the blue text is the words, the original, which doesn't take you anywhere. Like, I'm convinced that some of those creators will post the videos with no information in the caption just to boost the engagement with people asking how to find the original, because all of the comments will be looking for the original, and it makes the engagement just pew. And then, like, to have one of your videos recreated by one of these people is, like, one of the worst things that you could possibly hope to happen, apparently, because, like, having one of them recreate your video was, like, a really bad thing, because it means that your video was really cringy, even though they will literally just, like, recreate the same video that you made and not tag you and then get all the credit for you. Like, I don't know. Does it matter if what somebody made was cringy if they're not getting adequately credited for the content they made that went viral in the first place and provided the content for these creators to make? Like, it just... Ugh. At least point me in the direction of the original video when you post it. At least do that. The bare fucking minimum, point your audience in the direction of the original video when you post it. Oh my god!
So I haven't actually watched the response videos that Clinton Kane made to Brooke Schofield's videos about their relationship, and I'm not going to because somehow that man is an energy vampire through the screen, and I can't keep my eyes open when he talks. Like, get to the fucking point, dude. First of all, who did I date? Not marry. Dude, storytelling devices exist. Brooke Schofield is a storytime YouTuber. You think someone telling a story is not just going to naturally use hyperbole and exaggeration to convey the point of the story, like every single person that's ever told a story about their ex relationship in their life? Like, obviously you're not actually fucking married, Clinton. It was a title. Obviously you were not together every single second of every single day, because that was the hyperbole that a lot of people use when talking about their relationship. And then, like, Brooke finding out about him cheating on her and, like, lying about his family dying and then saying that she found out about it on, like, a specific date. And then he comes back and is like, actually, it was on June fucking 11th. Clinton, I'm gonna put your balls in a vice grip when I say this. That's not the fucking point, dude. And this is all to say, I am so confused. That's my overall feeling about this. Why? Who? How? How did this go on for so long? How did he get famous? Why is he famous? How have more people who knew him as a child not, like, come out and said things with, like, photographic evidence? I am so confused. How was he able to find 15 willing participants to cheat on his girlfriend with? Like... Okay, you can't say things like God loves you enough that you are alive and simultaneously be surprised that people are leaving the church in droves. Because listen to that sentence. God loves you enough that you are alive. First of all, if the Bible could be taken at face value in a totally literal sense of the word, God doesn't love me enough to let me live. Because Adam and Eve committed some kind of sin, and he decided to kill everyone because of it. Again, taking a mistranslation of the Bible in the most literal sense, if you take it that way, God did not love everybody enough to let them live. He loved them enough to let them die eternally if they don't do everything he says. Second of all, when you continue to spout this kind of rhetoric in the current day and age, how do you expect to proselytize to people in other parts of the world that you so badly want to evangelize to if you say that if God loves you enough, you will live? When there are multiple genocides happening around the world right now, where thousands of innocent people and children are being murdered. When you say that God loves you enough that you are alive, you are also saying that people who are killed are not loved enough by God to be allowed to live. Like,
God loves you enough that you are alive. Tell that to Jesus, a man of color who was murdered by keepers of the law, a man who only ever really truly got angry at judgmental hypocrites and people who used religion for profit. Do you think he cared about sin? No! The only people in Jesus' time who accounted for people's sins were the Pharisees, who Jesus fucking hated! Like, if you read the Bible and you actually read the Bible, like, read it! Don't just look up Bible verses on Google, and don't just look up sermons, and don't just go to church and listen to your pastor read excerpts from the Bible. Read the Bible. Like, read it, and you will see for yourself that sin is way too broad of a concept to apply to the entirety of the human race. And when the Bible talks about sin, it talks about specific moments in history pertaining to specific groups of people that specific scriptures apply to, because those scriptures cannot necessarily apply to a blanket statement about the entirety of the human race. Like, read the Bible. Read about Levitical laws and why Christians pick and choose which ones they want to follow. Read about why the Levitical laws were put into place in the first place. Read the Bible and read all of the literary devices used in the Bible that tell you what kinds of texts you're reading that should not be taken at face value totally literally. The Bible is 66 books written over the course of many years by many people. And even if you believe in your heart of hearts that God is a fully flawless and perfect being, humans are not, and they're not going to perfectly transcribe every single thing that God supposedly told them onto paper. No matter how badly you want to believe that the Bible is a perfect work of text, I highly recommend that you watch the documentary 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. Even as somebody who's been actively deconstructing my former religion for the last couple of years, this documentary completely opened my eyes to so many things I had never known before about the Bible.